So today we are making a Rockstar birthday card. We'll be using the Rockstar stamps and some of the dies from this kit and some pattern paper that comes in the Rockstar paper kit. I'm going to use this paper with the amps and cassette tapes and turntables. It's kind of retro. So I have our supplies ready. We'll have a normal size card base here. So the dimensions of this when you fold it are 5.5 tall, 4 1/4 wide. And then I'm going to use a piece of cardstock for matting. And this cardstock is 4 inches wide and 5 1/4 inches tall. So you go 1/4 inch on both dimensions less as you mat things to get 1/8 of an inch around each edge. And then for the pattern paper, this is 5 inches high and 3 3/4 inches wide. And then I have a little strip I'm going to put across here. So this is the same as the pattern paper, 3 3/4 inches wide. I think this is about 1 inch tall. I think you can do any depth you want on this depending on the scraps you're using. And I have our envelope here. And I have just one other little piece of paper I'm gonna cut out the banner on. So let's get going. I have a little secret tip I'm gonna do here. When you're layering a lot of things, sometimes it's good to cut out the center on some of the layers to keep it a little bit thinner. It's also a great way to make the most use of your paper. So on this one, I'm gonna actually be cutting the guitar that'll go on top out of the center of this paper. And then when I mat it, when I use it as a mat and put the patterned paper over it, you won't even know. And so it's a great way to get an embellishment that matches your matting exactly and extend the use of your paper. So I'm gonna go ahead and do our stamping here. And I'm gonna be stamping a few things. First, on the inside of the card, I'm going to stamp have a rock and roll birthday. There we go. That looks great. And set that aside. And on the envelope, you know, you have your stamps out, you have your supplies out. It's a nice way to dress things up. I'm just going to stamp a little guitar, maybe just straight up and down along the side here. I'll give a little clue to what's going to be inside. And then I'm going to stamp in the center of this green piece of matting my guitar that will cut out. And then on this little strip, we'll be stamping "You're a rock star." All right. Close up the ink pad. We'll clean our stamps later. Now we'll cut these things out. And this will be a card in an upcoming card buffet. And then I also really like this pattern because it's a great way to use up some of your scraps. So you can choose, I mean, with this black and white paper, you can choose any color of cardstock for your matting, the guitar, and the cutout. And really, you can use lots of different kinds of pattern paper here. So it's very flexible. So we'll line up the little die for this. And I like to stick that down with a little piece of washi tape. And then we'll cut the guitar also. And so if you come to my card buffet, you'll see this kit in a lot of different papers that you can choose from, colors and patterns. That way you can get just what you would like for the person, for the rock star you're gonna give this to. I'm gonna have to take this one over to my bigger machine. I see that now. So let me cut the small one with this machine. I just got this mini cut and emboss machine and I really love it. Most of the things I do, I can do right here on my desk without going over to my bigger machine. But since this this matting is a little bit wider than the machine takes 3.5 inch wide paper, in case you're thinking about getting that. I'll be right back with this all cut out. Now I have the guitar cut out, all set here. So we'll finish assembling the card. I think I'm gonna end up making this card in a lot of different colors. Using up, this is a great way to use some of the cardstock after you finish a project and you have some larger pieces. Tape it down with some Stampin' Seal. You know, and even that's kind of interesting to build a card around. Maybe for next time. And then once you put the pattern paper over the matting, no one even knows you used a little bit of it. And then this little strip, which you can see is just the back side of the pattern paper, I'm gonna put about here. And then we'll put the You're a Rock Star up here in the corner. You could also pop the guitar up on some dimensionals for some added interest. And there you go. A pretty great looking You're a Rock Star, Have a Rock and Roll birthday card. With these darker color cardstocks, one thing that can be nice to do is to use heat embossing on your stamping, and that really like pulls out the color of the stamping, and it gives a little bit of a glossy, raised finish to it. So I thought I would do that, show you how that works on a few guitars that I'm using in these guitar cards. So one thing to start off with is this little, I think it's a cornstarch filled sack. I've seen it called an embossing buddy. And if you just wipe that over the card or the paper that you're gonna emboss on, it helps reduce the static on the surface and helps the embossing powder go just where you want it to and not stick to other pieces of the paper. So always do that first. And then we're gonna use, you can use any ink that takes a bit of time to dry. Versamark is kind of made for this purpose. So I'm gonna use some Versamark ink and we'll ink up. This is a fun technique. Everybody that tries it likes it. So we'll ink up the stamp here and we will line it up and stamp our image. And now basically we have a clear image on our paper, and you can cover that then with any color of embossing powder and get those nice lines on it. So I'm using black. So you just sprinkle your embossing powder using a little tray that catches everything. And now your embossing powder is stuck to the paper, and then we're gonna heat it. But I will do all of the stamping first, and then I'll do the heating without sound on for you. I have several I wanted to do here. The Versamark gives you like a good amount of time before it dries, so you can stamp several things. Put them in the tray. And this tray that I'm using basically allows you to collect all of the powder and put it back in its container. I think it goes this way. Nope. The other way. You're a rock star. Hopefully I didn't mess that up. And then on this guitar pick, I'm gonna put thanks for being an icon. Making this one for my husband, who's an excellent husband. All right, now we can just get all these covered with the powder. And it doesn't really, you're not worried about like putting too much of this on or wasting it, because again, this tray collects it all. And then you put it back in. You can kind of tap it down to get the excess off. At this point, it looks a little bit like fuzzy, like velvety. Okay, so we have our images done, and the way this tray works is basically you just tap all your powder down into that funnel part, and then you can open this and pour your embossing powder back into the container. I don't know who invented this, but it's the perfect way to manage this. Now I'm gonna close up my ink pads, and I'm doing this embossing with the glass mat underneath me, which can withstand the heat. Be very careful about that. You don't want to go directly onto a surface that would get damaged from the heat. And then I'm going to take a little heat gun and go over the surface until the powder becomes glossy. So I will do that on fast motion with no sound for you. So hopefully you're able to see how that kind of melts the embossing powder, and you go from some loose powder on the surface that looks a little fuzzy to a nice shiny, there you go, you can see the shine in that one. Nice shiny raised lines where the stamping was. I think that looks really good on this. It really pops out the black stamping on dark colored cardstock. And so I decided to do 2 more cards to try a couple of different things that I want to show you in this Rockstar guitar one. So the first one here uses this maroon colored cardstock for the base. Again, I cut out the guitar. That's going to be hidden. And this is one of the ones that I embossed with the black embossing powder. And I also wanted to show you what I did here for the pattern paper. This is actually using scraps from the various papers that we cut out. I just take a piece of white cardstock, cut it to the size I want. In this case, the pattern paper on this is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then I tape down the pieces of scrap paper to that. And now I have a new piece of pattern paper to layer on top there. And then I wanted to make a thank you card for my husband. He's been taking care of me. So he's a guitar player, and I think he is an icon in the husband world. So I'm gonna use that. Again, I used the black embossing powder here. I again made a piece of pattern paper with scraps. I can't bear to throw away good pieces of paper when they can be used to make a great looking card. So I'll just assemble this last piece, and I hope that gave you some inspiration. I also realized I forgot to add bling to the example card. So we'll add a little bling to these. I've already taped the background paper down on this one and the cardstock matting. And I've popped up the guitar and the guitar pick. We'll add just a few pieces of bling here. Maybe one there and a little one down here. And there. I think that's a beautiful card. Then we'll finish off this one. Take down the maroon. And so this design is very flexible, this card design, because you can use it for any kind of focal point in the middle. You can easily squeeze in a sentiment and a design of some sort. And like I've shown here, you can use up every little bit of your paper, your pattern paper and your cardstock. And then I just went through I have a little box where I keep my partially used bling. And I pulled out a couple of different styles that go fine with these cards. For this one, I'm going to use some little silver glitter dots. The other one had some like bluish sparkles on it. You can add anything you'd like. I did these already have their own adhesive on the back, so we don't have to stick them down with anything. So there you have it. There's another way to escalate the card a little bit with the embossing to make the black really pop out, give it a little bit of shiny, and add some bling to it. I hope you've enjoyed these guitar cards, and I will be doing this in an upcoming card buffet. If you'd like to join me, let me know.